Okay, everyone. So, the purpose of today is to welcome Echo to the team for Egypt Union 2026. And Echo, we're just going to do a little bit of a spotlight here for you today to introduce you a bit about your work, your offerings, how you move in the world, and opening up this conversation about Egypt and what it means to you. So maybe you can start by just introducing yourself.
Mm. My name is Echo, and I am how to introduce myself. I'd say for the means of this pathway, I'd say I'm a death doula and a grief tender, and I work with music and the mystery to kind of move people through deep catharsis
Mm,
and move myself through deep catharsis. I feel like I am like an ever coming process, like less of a person and more of a process. So I think
mm.
it's probably the most ambiguous but truthful way to introduce myself.
Wow, beautiful. I love that. And I know that we share this kind of common curiosity with death as a rite of passage. And ultimately, it's not a coincidence that you're coming to Egypt because the ancient Egyptians were masters in death and initiation by death and through death. So it's a very interesting synergy to also be in the land and be with the wisdom from the ancient Egyptians and kind of like marry it together with the work that you and I do somehow. So, and why Egypt now? Because I know we spoke to this, it's been calling, and why do you feel like now is the right time?
Well, it's interesting actually, because and we were just speaking about like these interesting interruptions that kind of like come in the way when you've made a choice to do something. And sometimes I ask myself because fear can say, okay, something is getting in the way with this. I'm not supposed to do it. And
Hmm.
intuition can say, okay, I'm being tested of like how much I really want this and like how much I'm really meant to be there.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's been so much interesting tension around Egypt for me over the years. I've been dreaming about it. It's come to me in visions. I feel pulled to it, but I also feel a healthy fear and like a discernment of the power that's held there and the portals of change. I think from what I feel of it, people go to Egypt and they are shifted, like something shifts very, very big in them. And I think a part of me in the past knew that that was the truth and wasn't ready yet. Like my body said, I need to rest. I need to train. I need to energetically be like strong enough. I need to physically be strong enough before stepping into whatever this is going to be.
Hmm.
And even now, seeing your face and us talking about it, there's a feeling of, okay, like I'm ready. And also, I know that something will shift and something will be shifted for the collective, for us that will be there together traveling, and
Yeah.
also for my own personal becoming and unbecoming. So there's
Hmm.
been this like real tension, this, and I call it eustress, like positive stress.
Yeah.
Between me and Egypt, I feel like we have a love story. And I'm just like, okay, this is the moment, and I'm trusting. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, discernment is key. And I know our podcast was very much about this because our podcast topic was at the breaking point. And often people do find Egypt when they're in this radical timeline shift, where actually there's the death of an old self and there's a new frequency or version coming online, but we're kind of in the void space. And yeah, what you're saying is also speaking to that, like it's radical and there's a discernment about, can I hold this? Am I ready? Because the initiations there are deep and they're radical and they're profound. And I love that curiosity and question within you, just that made sure that you could hold that within yourself and can hold that in the field, right? Because we're prepared as facilitators to also hold the initiation of every single being that comes into our field on this retreat.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think with the holding of the field, in the most transformational spaces that I've been in, there is a mastery to holding and also acknowledging at the same time that you are always moved by the mystery. And no matter
Mm,
how much you are a teacher or a guide or a facilitator, you are being facilitated and you are being guided and led by the mystery. I think
Mm.
the more that I allow myself to kind of like hollow out my personal stories and whatever I need to do to heal, to empty myself, the more I can be in process, but also like really be watching, like observing and really feeling and attuning to the field. But
Yeah.
the more I feel like you are embodying the mystery and also in your process within, reason, it's the best way to be a facilitator and to be guided, knowing that you aren't in control. You are holding and you are observing, but there is something greater that's holding the space as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue because we're going to speak a little bit to who is this journey for a little bit today. And it's definitely for that. It's for someone that's ready to dance in the mystery because this is exactly it. I often say to people with Egypt that the frequency is so high there that the gods and the goddesses are family. So, something shifts because actually Isis and Osiris, they become brothers and sisters and they become like our deep allies because we can access a frequency that means that there isn't so much space between
Mhm.
godliness and the human realm. And so in order to access that, there has to be a awareness of the mystery unfolding. And so on some days our itinerary will go out the window because we get a beautiful invitation and opening for an experience that has been guided by the divine. And I know that we often bring temples to the world, and that's also the same energy, right? Of letting go of the human and following life. And so thank you for bringing that up because it's really important that we allow space for that, right? Because if we're in the human mind of the kind of expectation and attachment to, yeah, that small self, I guess, then we can't actually be moved by something kind of far greater and far bigger than us.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel that has been like the deepest teaching for me is actually to like let go of the reins because I'm kind of like holding reins that aren't going anywhere, like in this idea that I'm controlling, I am guiding, I have my schedule, I have my program written out. And it's beautiful to follow those in the essence of them. Like, what would I like for people to have the invitation to contemplate at this time and at this time? And then allowing the mystery to collaborate with you because I feel like the greatest containers that I've been in, there is a true collaboration to something outside of themselves that allows things to be organic. And it's difficult to get to the point of being able to hold that space because people want to know exactly what's going to happen. We are addicted to certainty. And the
Yeah.
reality is like nothing is ever certain. We can make plans
Mm.
and write contracts and do all of these things, but there's a spontaneity to aliveness. And yeah, the more that we invite that into the facilitation team, the more at ease we're going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And I feel like we've got the right team for that this year, and I think yeah, somehow as well, like I often speaking to a brother yesterday and he was saying, Egypt's like a psychedelic journey and it is because of the frequency again, right? So we're accessing these spaces and places that we don't normally access just because the consciousness there is so high and profound that actually we need facilitators and the team that can hold that
Mhm.
beyond self. And I feel like we've got a really great team to do that this year because yeah, there's this real invitation into, yeah, beyond the I. I speak a lot about that, into unity consciousness, into the we, into humanity, into transpersonal spaces. Um, and that's really why I believe I kind of ended up in Egypt doing this work because I'm someone that has often landed in these spaces and understood the power and the magic that's there and how we can then weave it into the personal, right? Like how we can then journey into the personal self and take that medicine and take that magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And who would you say this is for? Like in your sense of kind of what you do in the work, in the world, and also, yeah, your sense of kind of the container and our work so far. Like for those listening, like who would you be saying this journey is for?
I feel, I mean, just in the name of it, divine union. I,
Yeah.
I feel any individual that feels that there is something in them that is yearning to come into deeper clarity with their own wholeness, to like really collapse the polarities within themselves, to truly embrace the divine feminine that is rising in the collective, and to really heal the divine masculine and to like really bring it into a space of accountability and responsibility. The
Beautiful.
person that really wants to do that work, this is the space. And also those, I think there's so many of us that still are romantics at heart, that are longing for like a really, really different kind of love than we see in the world, that is so consumptive and so fast, like a love that really slows down and is attuned to the subtle and really sees the reverence in the people in front of them, like can really see the divine like imprints and blueprints of that person. And I think this is for those people that want to see something different than they're seeing in their cities and in their spaces. They want to slow down. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I love that invitation. Slow down, open deeper, open wider, and yeah, somehow also do this in a group field. It feels important that people are ready to honor the space of like, or the power of collective group field work because there's a powerful space in place for that, not just to shift the dial on us as in the eye, but also on humanity, and what's moving in the world right now. Because if we bring that intention to the group, then really radical shifts can happen
Mhm.
in the world around us. Yeah, beautiful. And final question, a little bit about your offerings. What are you excited? I know you're kind of involved in both containers, but particularly for Union, because this is the one we're speaking to and launching next week. Um, what are you excited to offer from your heart to the field?
What seems to be in resonance, I've been going through kind of a multi-year, it's been about 3 years in this like really, really deep portal that I would say was, from the spiritual lens, I would say it was like a descent into the underworld and still is. And it's been really incredibly challenging. And it showed
Mm.
me the depths of my fear and the depths of like the conditioning that still lives in my body and psychology, around systems that are breaking and falling. And so as they crumble inside of me, what I have been moved to do in the external system is hold space, like hold these really beautiful grieving spaces for both male-bodied beings and female-bodied beings and everyone along the spectrum, but bringing those two gendered spaces like together that have been harmed by a system that said you're this, you're half of the whole, like you're these parts and you're these parts, and given them a space to speak very explicitly to like the separation that's happened between them.
Yeah.
So we go into these really, really potent ceremonies that first are our rage and our frustration and the sadness, the deep sadness for not being seen in our wholeness, for us not seeing ourselves in wholeness, but also not seeing the other, for
Mm.
the objectification, for the extension of our needs through that person, like really looking at those things and having some difficult conversations and difficult
Yeah.
constellations, and then coming into a deep and beautiful grieving process that has a beginning, like a ritualistic beginning and an end. So
Yeah.
that you can cross the threshold into the collective well of grief and you can feel everything that maybe you never felt safe to feel. And you
Mm.
can touch the collective grief and you can come back and we can come into celebration of life, of like, I'm still here
Mm.
and you're
Mm.
still here. And even if I caused pain. And even if I saw men in a certain way or women in a certain way, I want that conditioning to melt and I want to come into like a deeper, reverent field and celebrate the fact that I still have breath. And so I'll be bringing ritual and ceremony around that separation and the dissolution back into unity through, yeah, catharsis and through music.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And it helps bring to life some other offerings of why people are coming to Egypt because it is Egypt and the topics that we bring are very important. Last year we explored the topic of leadership, and this year it's going to be very much about unity and about union. And I think that's why this topic of grief has to be at the center of it, because there is no life without a connection to death. And more we realize that our work is, yeah, in that realm of death and our connection to death that brings us closer to life. And from that place, we can really expand and tune into our power and tune into kind of the highest timeline, right? But that level of fear that you speak to,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, there's so much in humanity that's holding so much fear there around this idea of death somehow, or this fear of grief, or so yeah, how beautiful that we get to bring that in these lands with alongside masters, because ultimately I always like say the ancient Egyptian, culture and lineage, like that's my most resonant teaching, because everything that it was built on was this concept of deep initiation through death and fear, and these kind of like topics that are taboo, like they were really like they were very tended to in ancient Egyptian times. They were very much just as kind of a tribe would dance around the fire to heal the trauma of the collective group, like the ancient Egyptians mastered working with sexual energy, death, and fear, and it was almost like it wasn't taboo for them. It was just like, this is alchemy, this is power, there's medicine here, and how beautiful that we can bring those topics, but also to a land or to a kind of culture that knew these ways, right? Like the ancient Egyptians just knew how to master these very powerful transitions and rites of passages. And for me, that's why I feel like we're being guided to go back and be in reverence to those lands and those teachings at times where we can actually hold these topics in our consciousness and do the alchemy that is required, right? Because it is alchemy. It's very precious, transmutation of these energies, and it takes, skill. But we're here to guide that. And I think that's why when people ask me, why now? Why is suddenly everyone going to Egypt? I believe it's because there's some really deep codes there that we need right now to get through these times.
Well, speaking of that, I want to say, this 3-year portal that I spoke about, I feel the like it makes complete sense to me that it's this time, because I think so many humans, without even understanding what they're experiencing, there is like a fear. There is like a field of fear and scarcity in the world that keeps us like climbing over each other for more. Like we want more, we want more. And I feel like we're in such a war of excess. Like we are so excessive. We want so much and we actually need so little. We don't need what we say we need. And from my own experience, I feel like I've gone through a deep phase of what's called DPDR, like depersonalization or derealization, where it's like a dissociative, where I'm like a functioning dissociative, like a functioning alcoholic. You have functioning alcoholics that can succeed in life, and people don't see that there is an issue there. But something that I've experienced my whole life is kind of being outside of myself because it wasn't safe to be in my body. And so I've had to kind of like pull myself back in with a lot of love and say, hey, actually, you're safe in here. You're going to be okay. And I think so many people are experiencing something because the world is moving so fast, because of this excess, because of being on our screens and being pulled into all of the pain of the world. We're not meant to hold all of that alone. We were never meant to hold all of that alone. And because we don't have rites of passage, because we don't have tribe, because we don't have grieving circles, people are lost and they think that they're succeeding, or they're pulling on to, their weekends away, drinking, substances, sexuality, swiping, swiping, swiping. And we get pulled, pulled, pulled faster and faster. And so many people are outside of themselves, I feel. And you walk down the street and you see that energy of this kind of like zombie energy that people aren't really attending their bodies. They're not attending their lives. And so we really have an issue, I feel, in the world of like the walking dead. That
Mm,
is, I want to give people an opportunity to feel safe enough to come back into their lives and into their bodies. And I
mm,
think that Egypt offers the opportunity of almost like shock therapy in the most loving way, but putting your feet on the soil, being close to these ancient artifacts, and like coming back in. It's like being zapped back in, like, okay, now I'm in my body. And it might bring up fear. And from what I hear of people's movements in Egypt, it can bring them into these massive processes because all of a sudden they're back home and they haven't swept and they haven't tended to their house and they haven't, there's a lot of things that have been hoarded in the physical body. And so it's slowly like this decluttering process and this reorienting and remembering, like putting yourself back together. And so it has
Mm.
like it's an easy journey, but it
Mm.
feels like a really important one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And thank you, because I feel like that's a really beautiful place to end, actually, is like that radical acceptance of like, it's time. Like, as you were speaking, it was just like coming into my awareness, like, time is now, like it's time to come home. And it's also, yeah, there's something about honoring the vessel, honoring the temple, the physical temple with all those amazing temples there. There'll be this invitation for us to do deep somatics and embodiment work. And from what I see out there in Egypt, it's quite rare. A lot of the work out there is quite esoteric and it's quite up, and I've always been keen to draw in people that can also be curious about the descent path into the body and how beautiful that we can be in a physical temple. This is always the transmission that I've like remembered is not just temple arts, the physical temples and ritual together. It's not just I go to a temple, it's I go to an ancient temple. I kind of have a concept of temple arts and I bring ritual. And for me, that was the practices of the ancient Egyptians. Like these sacred practices were being done in those temples, and we'll create those sacred spaces where we stay so we can go back and create ritual experiences so that these transmissions can really land in the body, not just I'm going to go and see this temple and take lots of pictures and not really receive the transmission, because that takes integration, space, and time. And, that's why we do it this way. That it's not just a pilgrimage, it's far more. So I'm just really excited that we get to journey in this together and get to offer this in the world in this way and get to kind of create magic, because I feel like since we met, it's just like the goddess is like, yeah, you too, there's something here. Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to share just around your own like longings, intentions, yeah, anything that feels alive about the upcoming trip, because we are, yeah, officially launching this week.
Yeah, I just feel really grateful. Like I feel grateful to be alive at this time. It's not an easy time. And I'm reminding myself that every day. Like I'm so grateful to be alive at such a challenging time in history. And I choose to remain hopeful. I choose to remain like in my center, not being pulled. I think so many of the possibilities of being pulled into fear and into scarcity, they're very alluring and seductive right now. And I choose no, like I'm going to stay in my center. I'm going to believe in humanity. I'm going to believe in the beauty of what these incredible ancient Egyptians have created for us. Like there are so many profound, um, like kind of love stories that our ancient siblings have left for us. And that's what I see the land of Egypt as, is like a love story from the past where they're like, hey, I sent you, I like kept this treasure trove for you, and I pray that people that I'll never meet in all of my life, thousands of years later will find this and know that they were loved and that we were excited for them to come. And I'm excited to be a part of that and to like be on land with you and to be
Yeah.
there with somebody who has been there and is like embedded in the practices and to be held and to hold. So
Mm.
just very honored to be on
Mm.
this journey.
Beautiful. And yeah, thank you. I just had goosebumps like the whole of my body when you were saying that, it's exactly that. These ancient templates are kind of ready to be awoken, and I love how you share that it's our brothers and sisters are calling us home, because it really is that. It's like, when did we forget that we were the divine?
Mhm.
Like we've always been, we've always been, divinity. And there is literally that beautiful analogy of, well, it's real. The ancient Egyptians, the Book of the Dead. It's about the soul calling the soul home through these little yeah, teasers and codes and reminders that we leave for ourselves in our past lives. And exactly that's it. It's almost this has been left and uncovered, for a reason to be reinstated at a certain time, which is now. And we weren't ready for those codes and those transmissions before now because we didn't have the capacity to hold that in the collective and the personal heart. And those times are changing because we can actually hold those transmissions now and actually hold them with reverence and
Mhm.
with care and with integrity,
Mhm.
and that's why we're finding our way back to these places now. So yeah, wow, I feel like we've summed up some really beautiful threads, and it'll be part of us opening the doors this week. And then we have our two journeys in November 2026. So I'm really excited just to have you there and continue dancing and weaving together and sharing our magic.
Mm. Thank you.
Hmm.